everyone already knows the headline names. Alcaraz, Sinner. That part of the story is easy. What's more interesting heading into 2026 is what's happening right behind them. Because the gap everyone assumes is huge, it's not. It's actually shrinking, and it's shrinking fast. There are players right now who are one adjustment, one healthy season, or one mental breakthrough away from changing the entire ATP picture. These aren't hype picks. These are players with real tools, real patterns, and very real paths forward. Let's get into it. Arthur Fee is one of the clearest examples of how modern tennis is evolving. He already looks like a top-level athlete, powerful, explosive, and comfortable trading heavy shots from the baseline. What separates him from being just dangerous and being truly elite is structure. Right now, his forehand is good enough to hurt anyone, but it doesn't always show up at the right moments. When Fee learns to build points with intention, serving into patterns, trusting his backhand just enough to let the forehand do the damage, that's when things change. By 2026, he's the kind of player who doesn't need to peak to beat a top seed. He just needs to play his game. And then there's Ben Shelton, who might already have the single biggest weapon outside the top tier. His serve can take matches out of an opponent's hands completely. But the real question for Shelton isn't whether he can hold serve. It's whether he can apply pressure when the serve isn't bailing him out. Right now, elite players are comfortable letting him hold and waiting for mistakes elsewhere. If Shelton improves his return positioning and becomes more patient in rallies, suddenly he's not just winning tiebreaks, he's breaking opponents. That's the difference between being a highlight machine and being a genuine slam threat. Holger Rune is fascinating because, at his best, his game already looks complete. He can take time away, redirect pace, and play aggressive tennis without overreaching. The problem is consistency, not just week to week, but within matches. Rune has a habit of drifting emotionally, abandoning patterns that are working, and trying to force momentum back instead of trusting his level. If he figures out how to stay boring when boring is required, his ceiling jumps immediately. In 2026, Rune's story isn't about talent, it's about discipline. With Lorenzo Musetti, the conversation has quietly shifted. For a long time, the question was whether his beautiful game could survive when matches turned physical and tense. Recently, the answer has started to look like yes. He's stronger, more resilient, and more willing to stay in rallies instead of escaping them with creativity. If his serve continues to improve, and that's the key, Musetti becomes incredibly awkward to play against. On clay, he's already dangerous. On hard courts, if he holds serve more reliably, he turns into the kind of player who sneaks deep into slam draws because nobody really wants his variety over 5 sets. Alex de Minaur doesn't overwhelm you, he exhausts you. His speed and defensive instincts force opponents to hit again and again, and then again, until frustration creeps in. What's made him more interesting lately is that he's no longer just reacting. He's stepping into the court more, flattening out his forehand, and looking to end points when the opening is there. The remaining question for 2026 is whether he can do that against the very best consistently. If he adds just a little more bite on serve and a little more authority on big points, he becomes far more than just a tough out. He becomes a real late-round regular. Jakub Menšík feels like one of those players who might suddenly arrive without much warning. His serve already looks like it belongs at the top of the tour, and more importantly, he doesn't rush. He plays calm tennis, even in big moments, which is rare for someone so young. The biggest step for him is return quality. Big servers often plateau because they can't generate enough pressure on return games. If Jannik solves that, even partially, 2026 could be the year he makes a serious leap into Masters-level contention. When it comes to Alexander Zverev, the conversation always circles back to the same thing. We know the level is there. The serve is elite. The backhand is elite. He can outlast or overpower almost anyone when he's confident. The issue has never been ability. It's execution under pressure and durability across an entire season. If Zverev continues trending towards shorter points, more net play, and clearer forehand intent, 2026 could still be his best window. He doesn't need to reinvent himself. He just needs to commit. João Fonseca represents a very different kind of threat. He plays with fearlessness, takes the ball early, and isn't intimidated by reputation. That makes him dangerous immediately, especially in early rounds. The key for Fonseca is learning when not to pull the trigger. If he improves his shot tolerance just enough to survive neutral rallies, his natural aggression becomes far more lethal. By 2026, he's the type of player who can blow open a draw simply by catching fire at the right time. Even Daniil Medvedev, despite already being established, remains someone you can't ignore heading into 2026. His game isn't built on athletic peaks, it's built on problem-solving, returning, and making opponents uncomfortable. Those skills age well. While players have adjusted to his deep return position, Medvedev is still one of the hardest players in the world to beat over long matches. If he stays healthy and keeps refining his offensive balance, he'll continue to be a factor when tournaments get tight. Which brings us to the real story of 2026. Not a single player, but the race to become the third force in men's tennis. The tour is waiting for someone to step into that space behind the very top. The players on this list aren't just interesting names. They're players with identifiable paths forward. Adjustments that, if they click, turn potential into pressure. And that's what makes 2026 so compelling. So those are the players I'm watching closely, not because of hype, but because their next step is clear and achievable. Let me know in the comments, who do you think actually breaks through in 2026? And if you want, I'll do a follow-up video on which of these players could realistically win a Grand Slam, not just make quarters.